The truce was older than memory. Older than most species still alive to remember why it existed. 10,000 years ago, when the stars were young and arrogant, the galaxy learned a lesson it never bothered to write down properly. They called it the Truce of Silent Fire, a sweeping accord signed in orbit above a dead world whose name had been quietly erased from every star map. Officially, the truce was about peace. Unofficially, it was about humans. Back then, humanity had been new. Loud. Crude. Emotionally unstable. A short-lived species by galactic standards, prone to infighting and reckless technological leaps. When they stumbled into interstellar politics, the elder empires smiled the way adults smile at children holding knives. Then the Emberfall War happened. It lasted 19 years, 6 months, and 4 days. That was all it took. No one liked talking about it. Records were sealed. Archives burned. Even now, 10,000 years later, most species only knew fragments, entire fleets missing, planets cracked open like eggs, and empires simply gone. What was remembered was the aftermath. Humanity stopped expanding. They stopped posturing. They stopped threatening. They signed the truce without argument, accepted restrictions on weapons, warfare, and military presence, and quietly withdrew behind their borders. To the galaxy, it looked like shame. To humans, it was mercy. So the stars grew calm. Trade replaced conquest. Armies became ceremonial. War colleges taught theory instead of practice. Generals aged into politicians. The idea of total war became mythological, something primitive, something best left to extinct species. And humanity? Humanity laughed at the jokes. Drank with diplomats. Sent poets instead of admirals to galactic summits. Their ships were small. Their fleets modest. Their representatives irritatingly polite. Which was why the Car Dominion decided the truce was obsolete. The Car were ancient conquerors. Reptilian, massive, and genetically engineered for dominance. Their history was a parade of victories carved into the bones of lesser species. They had obeyed the truce for centuries, not out of fear, but boredom. Peace had made them stagnant. Their warriors grew soft. Their young questioned old glories. Their empire needed a war the way a predator needs blood. Humanity was perfect. Small territory. Weak military presence. No visible superweapons. A species that had retreated from its violent past. The Car High Warlord broadcast the declaration himself. This truce was forged in cowardice. His voice thundered across 1,000 systems. It shackled the strong and protected the weak. We reject it. Humanity will be made an example. Their worlds will burn, and the galaxy will remember what true power looks like. The message reached Earth at 3:17 Universal Time Coordinated. It played on screens in command bunkers, city apartments, orbital stations, and one half-empty bar near the edge of the Pacific megalopolis where a group of old men were playing cards under a flickering light. The bartender turned up the volume. The room went quiet. One of the men, white-haired, scarred, his left hand unmistakably synthetic, snorted. "Well," he said, tossing down his cards. "Took 'em long enough." The others chuckled. Not nervous. Not afraid. Amused. On Luna, in the Unified Defense Council chamber buried beneath 3 kilometers of regolith and politics, Admiral Ruth Calda listened to the same broadcast without blinking. She had been alive when the truce was signed. She had been young then. Now she was old, augmented, and very tired. "They've mobilized?" she asked calmly. "Yes, ma'am," an aide replied. "Car fleets are crossing former truce lines. Estimated strength." "I know their numbers," Calder said. "I helped reduce them once." That earned her a few uneasy glances. Most of the officers in the room had never seen real war. Skirmishes, yes. Piracy suppression. Border incidents. Nothing that required silence afterward. "They think we're weak," a general said. "Because we complied? Because we disarmed?" Calder leaned back in her chair, joints whirring softly. "No," she said. They think we forgot. She gestured to the center of the table. A red icon pulsed, dormant for millennia. Wake it up. The aide hesitated. Ma'am, that protocol hasn't been used since the last time someone was stupid enough to start a war with us. Calder finished. Send the response. Across the galaxy, car warships surged forward in disciplined formations. Their hulls gleamed with ancient symbols. Their crews chanted battle hymns older than human civilization itself. They expected panic. They expected pleas. They expected defiance, maybe. What they got was audio. A single transmission broadcast on all known frequencies. No encryption. No distortion. Just sound. Human laughter. Deep. Rough. Layered. The laughter of soldiers who had buried friends and survived anyway. The laughter of people who had already paid the price and knew exactly what was coming next. Then a voice, calm and unmistakably human. Attention, Car Dominion! You have officially violated the Truce of Silent Fire. All restrictions are hereby lifted. Rules of engagement are void. Welcome back to war. The car bridge crews stared at their consoles in confusion. What does that mean? One officer demanded. Before anyone could answer, their sensors went blind. Space rippled. Not with hyperspace signatures. Not with jump wakes. Reality itself bent, like something enormous had pushed through from underneath. Human ships emerged. Not sleek. Not beautiful. They were slabs of metal and scars, their hulls patched and repurposed 100 times over. Names were etched into their armor, not honorifics, but memorials. The lead vessel transmitted one final message. We waited 10,000 years so we wouldn't have to do this again, the human captain said. You broke the silence. The guns came online. And the galaxy remembered why the truce had been necessary. The first car fleet died without ever understanding how. Their war doctrine was flawless, by ancient standards. Layered shields. Redundant command nodes. Battle priests chanting probability prayers while targeting arrays calculated millions of firing solutions per second. They advanced in perfect formation, confident that even if humanity resisted, it would be with outdated weapons and desperate courage. Instead, the humans did nothing. No radio chatter. No warning shots. No challenge codes. The car commanders mistook the silence for fear. Maintain formation, the fleet master ordered. Prepare saturation fire. Human ships drifted forward, slow and heavy, like predators that didn't need to hurry. Their hulls were dark, absorbing sensor pings instead of reflecting them. No visible weapons charged. No energy buildup. Primitive reactors, a car technician scoffed. They lacked the power for a proper opening salvo. Then something detached from the human lead ship. Small. Irregular. Barely registering as mass. Debris? The technician guessed. The object fell, not toward a planet, not along a vector, but down, as if space itself had developed a gravity well where none should exist. Alarm screamed. The thing accelerated without thrust, without heat, without reason. Car shields flared as targeting systems tried, and failed, to lock onto it. Impact came like a god slamming a fist through the universe. The forward car battleship didn't explode. It collapsed. Its shields folded inward, then the hull followed, compressed into a shrinking sphere of screaming metal and dying crew before vanishing in a flash of warped spacetime. What weapon was that? The fleet master roared. No one answered. More objects fell. Dozens. Hundreds. Each one a localized gravitational nightmare, human-engineered singularity darts. Not true black holes, but close enough that physics filed a formal complaint before giving up. Car ships were crushed, twisted, pulled apart as internal gravity spiked and flipped. Crews died pinned to ceilings, floors, walls, sometimes all at once as orientation ceased to matter. The human ships still hadn't fired their main guns. Return fire! The fleet master screamed. All batteries! The car unleashed everything. Beams of stellar plasma carved through space. Antimatter warheads bloomed like artificial stars. Weapons banned under the Truce tore open the void itself. Human ships took the hits. They staggered. They burned. They kept coming. Armor peeled away to reveal thicker armor beneath. Sections blew out, venting atmosphere, and then sealed again as internal systems rerouted around the damage. One human cruiser lost half its bow and continued advancing, engines flaring brighter. A human voice crackled over open comms, calm and faintly amused. "Damage report?" "Minimal," another voice replied. "Lost the coffee machine." "Damn. That's coming out of someone's pay." The car fleet broke formation. Discipline gave way to panic. That was when the human guns activated. They weren't elegant weapons. No beams, no glowing arcs. Just thunder. Rail cannons fired slugs the size of ground vehicles at relativistic speeds. Each round hit with the accumulated momentum of centuries of grudges. Car shields flared once, then failed catastrophically. The slugs didn't just penetrate. They carried data. As each projectile struck, it broadcast a human identifier into the car ship's systems. HNS Emberfall. HNS Quiet Resolve. HNS Long Walk Home. Ships lost during the First War. Ships the galaxy had erased. Humanity had not. Car vessels ruptured from the inside out, their command decks obliterated before orders could be screamed. Entire wings vanished in overlapping impacts that tore holes through space and left debris fields expanding faster than light could legally justify. "Board them," Admiral Calder said softly from her command chair, watching the slaughter with old, tired eyes. Human assault craft launched, ugly, armored wedges packed with Marines. The Marines were not young. They were veterans. Faces lined. Movements economical. Armor scarred and customized. They spoke in low tones, trading insults and jokes older than most civilizations. Boarding torpedoes punched through car hulls. The fighting inside was brutal and brief. Car warriors charged with ritual blades and plasma halberds, roaring their lineage. Humans met them with shotguns, kinetic rifles, and knives designed for close, ugly work. A car champion lunged at a human sergeant, his armor glowing with energy fields. The sergeant sidestepped, jammed a weapon into the alien's chest, and muttered, "Still using this stance?" "Figures." The champion died before he hit the deck. Human Marines advanced methodically, clearing corridors, disabling reactors, venting compartments full of armed resistance into vacuum. They didn't torture. They didn't gloat. They finished the job. Within 47 minutes, the car invasion fleet ceased to exist as an organized force. The survivors, those few ships that managed to flee, carried something far worse than damage back to their empire. They carried fear. For the first time in 10,000 years, the galaxy watched a war in real time, and realized the Truce hadn't been protecting them from each other. It had been protecting them from humanity. And the humans were just getting warmed up. The Car High Council convened in a panic. Their chambers, carved into the living bone of a dead planet, shook with the unaccustomed tremor of fear. Counselors hissed, clawed, and shouted over each other, their scales rattling like ancient armor. They erased an entire fleet," one croaked. "Not destroyed. Erased. Our weapons, our tactics, nothing worked. They must have broken every law of physics," another said. "Perhaps time manipulation? Gravitic singularities?" The High Warlord slammed his clawed hand on the obsidian table, sending shards skittering across the floor. "No. Stop grasping for excuses. Humanity has violated the truce, yes, but this is sorcery. They waited 10,000 years. 10,000 years. They prepared." Meanwhile, humanity did not bombard. Humanity did not demand surrender. Humanity sent an envoy, a single ship, ancient, battered, and unassuming. The HNS Emberfall, a relic of the First War, its hull scarred, its engines barely humming, its history older than most car counselors, drifted silently into the heart of car space. Inside, Admiral Ruth Calder walked alone through the familiar corridors. She was old, augmented, but alive in ways only humans could afford after centuries of war. Every step she took carried the weight of 10,000 years of preparation, patience, and memory. When she arrived, the council gasped. You come alone?" one car delegate screeched. "Your species just annihilated our fleets. How dare you enter unguarded?" Calder smiled faintly, leaning on her cane. "Because I trusted you. And apparently you're still stupid enough to believe in your invincibility. You violated all norms," the warlord hissed. "Your weapons, your tactics, this is barbarism." Calder shook her head. "Barbarism? You broke the truce. You brought war to a galaxy that hadn't seen it for 10 millennia. We simply responded in kind. Only differently, efficiently." She tapped a control on her wrist. A hollow projector lit up the chamber with human history during the truce. Fleets, training grounds, simulations, and records of clandestine war research filled the air. Programs designed to push physics to their limits, weapon concepts that would have horrified elder civilizations, strategies that blurred lines between reality and probability. "You see," Calder said, her voice calm but ice cold, "while you've been resting on doctrines older than our species, we've been practicing. We've been learning. We've been waiting. And now, we stop pretending." The warlord's claws trembled. You prepared, all this time?" Calder nodded. 10,000 years. Every second. Every calculation. Every failure remembered. Every victory catalogued. Do you understand now why your fleets disappeared?" The chamber went silent. Not out of respect. Not out of awe. Out of sheer terror. Outside, the human fleet had arrived. Hundreds of ships emerged silently, circling the car system like vultures with perfect patience. Every jump point locked. Supply lines severed. Communications jammed. Entire systems cut off without a single civilian casualty. The car demanded surrender. Calder refused. "Do you want revenge?" she asked, her tone deceptively soft. "Of course," the warlord spat, fangs gleaming. "We will rise again." "Good," she said. "Some of us enjoy revenge too. Others want justice. Me? I want you to remember. Every day. Every second. That you lost a war you started. Against people who only laughed at your arrogance." She turned and left. The corridors of the Emberfall echoed with her footsteps, the sound of a species that had waited a millennium for the moment when patience became power. As the human fleet tightened its noose, the Car Empire realized a truth older than any doctrine. Humans didn't need to destroy to win. They just needed to survive, endure, and await. And survival, after 10,000 years, had turned into something far deadlier than the galaxy had ever imagined. The warlord stared at the holograms one last time, a trembling whisper escaping his maw. They remembered everything." Calder's voice carried from the Emberfall's comm system into every corner of car space. "And now, you will too." The first siege of the new human war had begun. Not with fire, not with blood, but with the quiet, terrifying inevitability of a species who had mastered time itself as a weapon. And the galaxy held its breath. The war did not end with surrender. It ended with silence. The Car Dominion, once a sprawling empire of 10,000 worlds, collapsed from within. Star systems went dark. Fleets mutinied. Governors abandoned planets rather than face human oversight. The survivors of the first strike lived only to remember the defeat. Every strategy that had once seemed flawless now a testament to arrogance. Humanity did not conquer. Humanity did not annihilate. They rebuilt the truce, stronger, sharper, and far less forgiving. A new set of rules was forged, with teeth the galaxy could feel even through communications blackouts. Humanity did not demand loyalty, they demanded remembrance. Admiral Ruth Calder stood on Earth's orbital command station, observing the signing ceremony of the reinforced truce. Alien delegates approached cautiously, their gazes flicking nervously to the human stoic forms, unwilling to meet eyes. Younger officers, less scarred, less hardened, carried the legacy now. Calder had passed the torch, leaving only the memory of experience behind. A journalist floated up in microgravity beside her, voice trembling just slightly. "Admiral, do you regret it? The devastation, the fear, the scale of it?" Calder considered the question for a long moment. Outside, Earth spun silently, pale and patient against the backdrop of black infinity. "I regret that we warned them," she said finally, a faint, humorless smile crossing her face. "Twice." Her words echoed through the empty chamber, carrying weight far heavier than any weapon. Meanwhile, in exile on a distant car world, a single survivor whispered to his young brood. "Never provoke humans," he said, voice low, trembling, teeth glinting. They do not fear war." "Why?" his child asked, eyes wide. "Because when war comes," he said, swallowing hard, "they finally get to stop pretending." Across the galaxy, the memory of that first human strike spread like wildfire through trade routes, calm channels, and whispered legends. Other empires learned quickly, provoke humans, and they may forgive, but they never forget. On Earth, a new generation of humans laughed. Not at cruelty. Not at conquest. Not at vengeance. But because the galaxy had learned the oldest human lesson of all. Peace is a choice. War is a skill. And humanity had mastered both. Ships patrolled quietly, officers trained rigorously, civilians lived normally, but everyone knew the truth. The galaxy had seen what happens when humans stop waiting. And now, 10,000 years of patience had turned into a single, undeniable fact. When humans fought, the stars themselves trembled. Somewhere, long-dead planets hummed faintly as if remembering the Emberfall War. Somewhere, alien councils debated strategies that would never work. Somewhere, humans drank coffee, argued politics, laughed at old jokes, and prepared silently for the day when the next challenger would mistake patience for weakness. And the galaxy understood. Humanity had returned. Not angry. Not vengeful. Just ready. And that was far more terrifying than any weapon.